Hi, I'm Dianna Colman, and I would like to say thank you to NEAF and all of the people who have been involved in putting this program together. We very much appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about Yerkes Observatory and about the Yerkes Future Foundation. We also hope that all of you are staying safe and healthy. We know that it's a very difficult time right now, and we want you to understand that we have a lot of concern about all of the people who are involved throughout the world, but most especially in your New England area and again in Wisconsin. The Yerkes Future Foundation was set up about 2 years ago, and I have had the privilege of serving as its chair for that length of time. We know that many of you have been out to Yerkes Observatory, and we truly appreciate your support over this past 2-year period. But we also know that some of you haven't had that opportunity, so we decided that we would bring Yerkes Observatory to you. And so now we're going on a road trip. We've been fortunate over the past 2 years to have a number of people volunteer their help. One of those individuals is a young man named Ryan Bensheimer, who has a company called Ideal Impressions. Ideal Impressions generally does wedding photography, but Ryan put together a short film so that you can see the beauty of the area. Yerkes Observatory sits on Geneva Lake in Williams Bay, Wisconsin. It's an iconic building that dates back to the late 1800s. Many pictures have been done, paintings, and of course this is the entry of the foyer. It's a beautiful building leading to the giant refracting telescope, the world's largest. There are several areas throughout the observatory, libraries. That's an old photo of the telescope with Albert Einstein. And it's beautiful no matter what season of the year. As you can see, a lot of people have loved the observatory, especially in the fall. And it brings a great deal of joy, no matter how old you are. That's a little road trip for you, and we certainly hope when everything has transpired that you will be able to come out and actually see Yerkes Observatory for yourself. It is much loved and certainly known as the birthplace of modern astrophysics in the United States. For today, what I'd like to do is take you through what's been going on in the past couple of years, but most particularly what's been happening recently. We are going to go through the ownership and approval process, the building needs themselves, because there are some needs to a 123-year-old building, our preliminary strategic master plan, the staffing needs that we have, which I'm sure some of you are very interested in, and of course the capital campaign needs. I will also be talking about our contact information because we've finally set up our website and our email address. Right now, we are looking at the closing documents being completed on May 1st. At that point in time, the University of Chicago will transfer 49 acres of property and the observatory building, as well as a few other buildings that are on the property and a lot of the inventory that is currently housed at the observatory. The 49 acres will allow us to provide a beautiful collar of land around the observatory building, as well as restore some of the beautiful Olmsted landscape design that was in place from the late 1800s. We have a committee that's working on that right now, and that includes a lot of the garden club from around the area. And we have been in contact with Garden Club of America as well to make sure that we're following best practices and making sure that it's applicable to the situation as it occurs now. The historic items that are in the building obviously include the giant refracting telescope, but there are smaller telescopes, the glass plates that are currently in very safe storage at the observatory, and a number of other artifacts throughout the building. One of the difficulties that we're running into is that with the coronavirus issues, the Village of Williams Bay has not been able to hold all of their Plan Commission meetings. So as a result, some of our permitting has been delayed. That has actually worked to our advantage in a couple of respects, in that we don't have to do some of the work on the parking area that we thought we were going to have to do until well into the fall, obviously saving us some cash outlays. One of the other things, though, that we wanted to make sure that we had in this process of public meetings is input from the local citizens in the area who dearly love the observatory, as well as scientists and educators from around the world who have been very interested in making sure that the observatory is well taken care of and positioned for the future. As you might expect, there are some needs for the observatory. We need to improve the dome that houses the giant refracting telescope. The brickwork around the base needs to be remortised and then sealed in an appropriate manner to make sure that no water seeps in the way that snow accumulates on the exterior. We don't want to have it damage the brickwork on the interior. At the same time that we're doing the exterior brickwork, we're also going to be doing interior brickwork and removing some of the paint that was there and resurfacing that entire interior of the dome. The other thing, which is probably more exciting, is that we're going to be working with a gentleman named Ralph Nye from Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. Ralph was gracious enough to come up a couple of months ago and take a look at the giant refracting telescope to make sure that we could appropriately protect it while the brickwork was being done, but also to make sure that we could refurbish it in a way that brought it back to its glory of being a really spectacular looking telescope. Ralph has been very gracious about this entire adventure, and he will be working with a gentleman named Ed Struble. Ed Struble has been at Yerkes Observatory for almost 30 years, and he knows everything about the observatory and the telescope that there is to know. The other thing that we're going to be doing is working through the building room by room to make sure each room is clean, appropriately furnished, taken care of, painted where necessary, and then also have the floors, which are beautiful walnut floors, refinished. So there's going to be a lot of lighting, redone, paint, and furniture. And the 1970s era lighting is leaving and being replaced with appropriately historic, styled, but LED lights. So I think that that's going to overall be a much better look for the observatory in the long run. One of the things that has to take place fairly quickly is establishing a staff for the observatory. So let's talk about the type of individuals that we're looking for. But rather than go into great detail, what I would like for you to do is also to take a look at our website, and I will give you that information a little later on. When we look at Yerkes Observatory, we know we need an executive director who would report to the Yerkes Future Foundation board. Additionally, we want a director of buildings and grounds, and that person we already have in place, and that is Ed Struble. As I mentioned before, he's been with Yerkes Observatory for almost 30 years, and I don't think we could move forward without him. Some of you have been fortunate in that you know who Ed is, and I think you'll agree that this is a very wise decision on our part. We're also looking at this point for a part-time administrative assistant, and that individual would be responsible for scheduling and working with the executive director and with Ed Struble. As we move forward and we begin to expand, we're going to need a development director. That person should have some extensive fundraising experience, but also should be part of our community, should be a person who can go out and talk to people and work with them, and also work very closely with the executive director. And finally, and certainly a key piece in all of this, is we will need an education director. And that job has yet to be completely defined. So what I'm hoping is, as we work through and start posting some of these positions on our website, that those of you who are interested will contact us. When we start talking about what's going to be happening with Yerkes Observatory in the future, we have a lot of ideas. And we've also been fortunate that we've had two wonderful consultants working with us, Ian McLennan and Bill Peters. What they have started to do is help us put together a preliminary strategic master plan. And this master plan will have several phases. We're right now in the early phase, which obviously focuses on the building improvements, refurbishing the telescope, hiring staff, laying the groundwork for all of the fundraising. But also it involves going out and getting greater community involvement, greater research in terms of what we want to accomplish. So it's not only talking with the people in Williams Bay and the greater Geneva Lake area, but also talking with a lot of you, talking about the educational programs, collaborative work that could be done, and all of the ideas that you've put forth to us over the past year and a half. We've been so grateful for some of the input from people such as John Briggs, who did an incredible job looking at the inventory and especially giving us detailed information about what was in place at the observatory. The other thing that we'd like to do is establish Yerkes Observatory as a destination. Not only a destination for people just to come in and see what has happened over the years and all of the ideas, the great people who have been there, and the discoveries that were made there, but also a destination for educators and scientists, astronomers, who want to come in and work together to look at various projects and ideas that don't necessarily involve the Great Refractor, but could involve other smaller telescopes, or just to do theoretic research. Bring in your graduate students from colleges and universities throughout the country, most especially in the Midwest, and look at all of the things that can take place there. One of the other parts of the strategic plan, obviously, is to look at governance, how we will work through the operational aspects of Yerkes Observatory. Not only just the maintenance of the building and all of the artifacts that are inside, but looking at all of the things that are involved in making this come alive again. We also need to set up a staffing structure for the administration of the observatory and all of its programs. Additionally, within this preliminary strategic master plan, we're looking at capital costs and timelines, because there again, we need to make sure we take a very measured approach on how we look forward to the first phase, and then ultimately all of the additional things that we would like to see happen there. We think of phase one basically as being now through 2024. Expect this is not going to be inexpensive. We know that we have a lot of work to do, both in terms of taking care of the building and the landscape, but also in terms of providing educational programming and working with other educators and universities and colleges. So we're looking at two pieces. First of all, there's a long-term funding need of about $20 million. That will generate income in order to help offset some of the operating costs of the observatory itself. The immediate needs, however, are probably about $5 million, and that will cover some of the repair work and also start laying the groundwork for our staffing as well as for some educational programming. If you look at our base structure for preserving, protecting, enhancing, and expanding Yerkes Observatory, both in terms of preserving and protecting the building, but also in enhancing all of the activities that are at the observatory itself, we're going to need about $5 million. This is an iconic, historic, amazing building, and I've often thought it just dropped out of the sky and landed in this little tiny village. But it has been the home to so many amazing scientists, astrophysicists, educators, that it is a valuable piece of the American history and also a valuable piece of modern astrophysics in the United States. What we would like to do as a foundation is use the funding that we receive in support of Yerkes Observatory to further that and make sure that the history that is so rich right now gets to last for another 123 years. So, to wrap everything up for you, this is an adventure, but it's an adventure for all of us. And we sincerely hope that you will keep in contact with the Yerkes Future Foundation as we try and bring Yerkes Observatory back to life again. On your screen you should see the YerkesFutureFoundation.org. That is our new website. If you need to email us, please feel free to do info@YerkesFutureFoundation.org, and we will respond. I would also like to take this moment to thank everyone on the Yerkes Future Foundation Committee, everyone at NEAF, and also Scott Roberts, who took a lot of time to make sure that we could pull all of this information together. I met Scott about a year and a half ago, and over the course of this past time frame, he has been very gracious in making sure that all of the contacts that we could possibly need have been available to us. Additionally, I'd like to thank all of the faculty in the sciences and astrophysics, astronomy at the University of Chicago, and the archivists and librarians. They have been remarkable in terms of providing support and information to us. John Briggs, of course, has been a godsend in terms of doing inventory and all of the work that he did for so many months. Finally, I would like to thank all of you. I would have loved to have been there with you in person. I will try and be there in September so we can have an extended discussion about this. But please know that when Yerkes is up and running again, you are all welcome, and I would love to meet every single one of you. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful summer. We will be looking forward to meeting you in the future.